Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to Lazio Lounge, our first and only podcast in English about Lazio. Season preview. This is a great podcast because we're going to talk about the summer transfer market, friendly matches, and how we see Lazio finishing this season. And I know the first question is the transfer market for Lazio done? Well, I have the answer straight for you. Look who's back. So you know what's going to happen. No more signing. No more signing. I'm sorry for you guys. I know you were hoping a Vision Mobile, a left back, and so on, but Alazar is back from holiday again. And this mean Provedel is the last one, right, Alazar?
Well, I was away for 4 days last week, and last week didn't do anything. And then since I've got back, Providel has arrived in Rome, and he's doing his medical. So I don't know, Vittorio. There's flaws in your logic here, which I think that might surprise everyone to hear that there are flaws in your logic.
Well, I can say we signed it last week, and he's just came to Rome to do the medicals. So, my logic is still intact. Alazar, first question. Do you think Provedel is going to be the starter or Maximiliano will be the starter? Do you think Provedel will challenge basically what Proto didn't do when he came to Lazio? He didn't challenge Strakosha to improve, etc. Or, it's an open race. Who is better will play or they will rotate. I mean, we have Europe League, we have Coppa Italia. One will play in the Coppa Italia, one will play in the Serie A, the other one in the Europe League. What's your thought on the goalkeeper situation?
Well, I think given the profile of Providel, the fact that he's an experienced Serie A keeper, and the Lazio have clearly spent decent money on him and spent a lot of time, invested a lot of time and effort in making sure that deal gets over the line. I do think that he's definitely coming in to do more than be a number two. A lot of the answer to that question will obviously depend on how Maximiano does, because he's a less known quantity. I think having gone through the whole pre-season with Maximiano in goal, I would expect that he's going to be the one who's starting on Sunday and kind of goes into the season as first choice. But yeah, it'll be good to get a bit of competition for places, because I know we did have that previously with Strakosha and Reina, but it wasn't really the kind of competition that we were hoping for. And it wasn't necessarily so much to even then kind of two players competing for the same spot, so much as one player starting the season and then getting booted out after conceding a million goals and a different one coming in. So yeah, how do you see it going? I mean, in terms of the differences perhaps between the two goalkeepers, kind of technically, do you think that makes a difference at all?
Well, I think first of all, Provedel pushed to come to Lazio because I think talking with Sarri, he knew that he was coming to Rome to have a chance to be the starting goalkeeper. He knew that he had the opportunity to start. He will fight for the first position for the number one goalkeeper. And that's the reason why, for example, he didn't accept the offer from Napoli. Napoli was looking for Provedel last week, but he knew that going to Napoli, he would be the number two because probably Kepa or Navas will come to Napoli and he would have been the second option. So he knew that. As you were mentioning, the skills for an Italian goalkeeper are completely different from Spanish, especially South American goalkeeper. And I know we're going to talk about the friendly match later, but he didn't convince me, Alistair. Lazio, the last three friendly matches, struggle a little bit, and I don't remember any good saves from Maximiano. So he's very young. They say he's very talented, but I know that Provedel comes knowing that he will have a chance to start and be the number one. As you were mentioning, he just arrived today. Lazio will play in less than 7 days, so I don't think he will have the chance to start against Bologna. But who knows? The next week, the week afterwards, if Maximiano is going to start or Provedel is going to be the starting goalkeeper. I think a lot depends on how Lazio Bologna goes. So definitely he knows he has a chance, but I think Maximiano is the number one, at least in week one of the Serie A that's coming. And Alistair, this is a little bit weird because I think we both agree that this has been the best summer transfer market in the Lotito era, but the friendly match has been probably one of the worst of Lotito era. How do you make it? I mean, we made great signing, but the performance has been, I don't want to say terrible, but we lost 4-1 against Genoa. We drew against Qatar 0-0, and we lost at penalties against Valladolid. I mean, we didn't lose against Real Madrid or Paris Saint-Germain. So what's your take on this? What's happening?
Well, we thrashed out Onso, so I don't think we've got anything to be too worried about. Um, yeah, it's been a strange preseason. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last time after the Qatar game. After the Genoa game, I think it was, and yeah, because there's such enthusiasm and anticipation about the season ahead because of the Mercato, because it's second season under Sarri, and an expectation, I guess, of the team being more settled and being more capable really of pushing on into the top four. I think there's a lot more hope, certainly within the fan base, but even within the media, the kind of predictions swirling around pre-season. I think Lazio are in that discussion, and I'm not saying that people are nailing them down as a top four team, but they're in the discussion now in a way that they probably weren't last season. It is concerning, the lack of goals, though, isn't it? That's something that we've never had to really worry about under Sarri. And the inability to score goals against teams like Qatar and Valladolid is concerning, because there will be tougher challenges, obviously, than those two coming up.
Yeah.
Um, it is pre-season. I think we shouldn't ever get too carried away in either way. If we're smashing Bayern Munich in pre-season, it still doesn't mean an awful lot in the grand scheme of things. So I think we do need to kind of keep it cool a little bit and see what happens in the first game. But yeah, I think that the lack of, it's not just the lack of goals, is it? It's the lack of real chances created in those matches is a big concern.
Yeah, the fact that Ciro Immobile didn't pretty much have any chance in these three matches, it's concerning. Against Genoa, he scored on an incredible assist of Milinkovic Savic, falling down. The ref was ready to give us a penalty. Against Qatar, he pretty much had only the penalty. And against Valladolid, pretty much the same. So that's something to be concerned of. And I think this is related to the Luis Alberto situation, Alistair, because we know that Luis Alberto, and we said it in the past podcast, that one of the secret of Ciro Immobile is Luis Alberto. He's able to see lines of passes for Ciro Immobile that nobody else can see. And the fact that in the last three matches, Luis Alberto didn't start, well, against Valladolid, he didn't play a single minute. It's not a coincidence, right? Luis Alberto doesn't play, Ciro Immobile doesn't have a chance. I think this is one of the reasons why Lazio have been struggle a lot. So this lead me to the question. Luis Alberto hasn't been called for Valladolid. Isco is signing for Sevilla. Do you think Luis Alberto is staying? And do you think he's going to be reinstalled in the team?
Well, I mean, it certainly looks like he's not going to Sevilla now. And in case anyone missed this, his mum was on the radio, wasn't she, talking about saying that she wanted Sevilla to bring her boy home, essentially. And yeah, it feels like we've been here a few times before. Obviously, with the homecoming story of Alberto is hardly a new one, but the Isco move changes things a bit. That's perhaps going to be a bit uncomfortable and a slightly difficult one for Sarri to manage, because Sarri himself has come out publicly essentially saying that he thinks Alberto is going to leave. So, I think it's good timing to recognize the importance. I don't think it is a secret. I think described it as a secret that to Ciro Immobile's success. I think he's been doing this for long enough that it's probably not a secret to many people anymore. But the problem is there's no alternative to that kind of player, and with the kind of vision, passing, and creativity that Alberto has, there's not really anyone else in the midfield who can do that. Even Sergei, as brilliant as he is, and he is capable of playing those passes, but it's not. He doesn't think that way in the same way that Alberto does. If he does stay, I think it'll be fine. It's not exactly a secret, like I say, that that Alberto is not going to be here forever, that he's not completely committed to ending his career last year. I think we're kind of fine with that by now. So you would just hope that it's not something that's going to disturb things too much between now and the start of the season.
No. Lazio signed Vesino in the meantime. Do you think he's the replacement for Luis Alberto? Or do you think he can help Sarri managing Luis Alberto this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a case of improving the squad depth. I mean, the way I would like to see the Vecino signing is more as the kind of other option in midfield that we were lacking last season. You know, if the midfield was being rotated last season and you were wanting to rest all three of them, you would end up playing Akpakpro. And so Vecino coming in kind of raises the quality of the second line of midfielders, I guess, which is now Cataldi, Basic, and Vecino. Which I think is stronger than it was last season, just because Vecino's a better player than Akpa. I hope he's not being considered a Luis Alberto replacement, because, like I say, he's not the same kind of player. He's not going to be able to do the same kind of things. And while there is an argument that Lazio needed more physicality in that midfield, something you've talked about before, I don't think this midfield wants to become all about physicality, because then we need to bring out the best in Ciro. We all know how essential that is to Lazio having success, is having players around Ciro who know exactly what to do with him.
Alistair, we've been very negative, but let's talk about the positive. I think Marcos Antonio has been a great signing. He showed it in these friendly matches. I'm a little bit concerned because against Genoa, against Qatar, and even last Saturday against Valladolid, he didn't start. Cataldi started. In the first half, in all these matches, Lazio struggled a lot. In the second half, coincidence, when Marcos Antonio came in, Lazio played much better, especially last Saturday against Valladolid. Second half was, I wouldn't say very good, but much better than the first one. Lazio created so many chances, and Marcos Antonio looked to be a very interesting player. So I don't understand why Cataldi is starting every single match. Do you think this will happen as well against Bologna, or it's just has nothing to do with the starting 11 against Bologna?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's definitely been a surprise, because I think it would obviously be easy to say it's preseason and we shouldn't read too much into it. But then again, you look at the teams that were selected for those games, and beyond that, it is more or less the team that you would expect to be starting the first game of the season. Plus, if you're playing a friendly match against another kind of top flight European team a week before you start, you would expect that that's going to be the team, more or less. But yeah, I mean, Antonio did clearly make a big impact off the bench. And I think the one thing, he does, hopefully, he's the kind of player who can inject that kind of tempo and urgency to Lazio's play and not slow down the ball when it gets to the midfield, which I think is something Cataldi is a bit guilty of doing. Cataldi's a good player, but I don't think he's got that instinctive kind of change of pace and change of tempo to his game that Sarri's kind of looking for. So yeah, I hope that he does start. I mean, if he doesn't, I don't think it'll take very long for him to be the first choice. I think maybe it's a case of easing him in a bit, because we shouldn't forget how young he is, how new to the league he is, all that stuff. So the players who are coming into the team are more likely to be starting instantly, I guess. Or Romagnoli knows what he's doing in Serie A inside out by now. Well, yeah.
He should.
He should do.
Alistair, I said this was the best summer transfer market in the Lotito era. Do you agree with me? I think has been the best so far for Lazio. I don't think, unfortunately, if we don't sell Luis Alberto, obviously, we're not going to sign any player. This is my point of view so far. But I think even if Lazio doesn't sign any other player, this has been the best summer transfer market for Lazio. For various reasons. First of all, we signed youngster. You mentioned Marcos Antonio. He's 22. Gila, he's 20. Cancellieri, again, 20. Not only youngster, but quality player, finally. We saw already Marcos Antonio. We saw Gila. Even Maximiliano is young and promising. So I think the two things combined together is definitely very good. But the best thing of all is that finally, I would say, this is the first time that Tare goes and signs the players the manager asked. We didn't see this with Inzaghi, right? Vavro was a player who didn't fit in the 3-5-2 scheme. Tare signed him. Murici didn't fit with Lazio, point of how Lazio played. Tare signed him. We could make another example like Johnny and Durmisi. So I think overall, this has been the best summer transfer market for Lazio. Do you agree with me? Or do you think, obviously, we could say, well, we could have signed left back, Avisha Mob, etc. But considering 19 years of Lotito, president, I think it's 19, I think this was by far the best summer transfer market of Lazio.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I have to put my hands up and admit I've not spent the hours before this podcast going through all the Wikipedia pages of previous summer transfer markets under Lotito, but certainly for the reasons you've outlined there, it has to be. I mean, it's not just about the quantity. I think people are talking a lot about the kind of 7 or 8 signings and that kind of being a mini revolution of the squad, but it goes beyond that. All the reasons you outlined, I don't want to repeat them all, but also essentially doing what they set out to do. You know, I don't think to have a successful transfer market, you need to always necessarily revolutionize the squad or spend loads of money or bring in star players or anything like that. You just need to essentially complete the objectives that you started with. And if you start with a pretty clear plan of how you strengthen that squad and make it better for next season, and you achieve that, then you've done well. And in Lazio's case, that's something that they've so rarely done. You know, it's been obvious to us year on year of us doing this podcast saying we need a Vice Immobile or we need a new centre, but we need this whole, we were saying last summer, there's the defence is the issue here and they didn't invest in it at all. You know, and this summer is the thing that stood out above all is that all the things that we were worried about not being done have essentially been done and more. It's actually not just that the players who had been brought in fit the positions and the average age going down, which you mentioned, but it's also the fact they've actually finally managed to sell players who aren't needed. Vavro and Murici have actually gone, which Lazio, it might sound easy, but Lazio have struggled in previous years to actually get rid of players. And the fact that those guys, Escalante, Adekanya, all these players who they deserve clubs, they shouldn't be left doing nothing. But Lazio's squad previous years has been left with unregistered players, players training by themselves, all this stuff. And they've managed to improve on that regard as well. So, yeah, I think you're probably right, Vittorio. Probably the best one yet.
Wow, I'm recording this one. Remember it. We didn't mention Javan Anderson left the club. He has been sold to a second league German team, so Bundesliga 2. I don't remember the name, sorry, but that's another positive sign for Lazio. What I'm not really happy, Alistair, is that we said it, right? Lazio need a Vice Immobile. I love the signing of Cancellieri. He's young, he's talented, but he's not a number 9. He's a winger who Sarri is trying to adapt to that position. Thinking about this season, you would prefer a Mertens, I don't know, a real number 9. I like this signing because the impression is that Lazio is not looking only for the season, it's looking for the future. In 2 years' time, Luca Romero could be one of the best winger maybe in Italy or in Europe. Cancellieri as well could become one of the most interesting Italian strikers. Sheila, Maximiano, etc. But considering this season, I don't know if Cancellieri is ready to be the Vice Immobile. So maybe he's going to start the first couple of months, and then we're going to see Pedro adapting, Felipe Anderson adapting, which we saw already last year didn't work. That's my biggest concern so far this season. But, you know, looking to the future, I'm optimistic. I'm happy about the signing. But this year, it could be an issue, right?
Yeah, but you've got to let Iglitari get his quota of wingers who are signed for the wrong position because every year he needs to get at least one and pretend that there's something else.
For guys that are listening for the first time to this podcast, Alice is convinced that Iglitare needs to sign 2 wingers per season. And to be honest, he pretty much did it every year. Even with Lazio playing without wingers, we signed Johnny Adekanye. So, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, you make a good point. It is kind of the one thing piece that's missing, I guess, and it's not completely missing given that Cancelliere obviously has come in. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think he's a number 9. I mean, it's a project, isn't it? It's not something you're necessarily expecting immediate results from, given his lack of experience in his natural position. So before the end of the window, that would be something I would like to see happen. It'd be interesting to see around, now obviously that the season's going to start again, that means we're going to start getting more press conferences and things, and people will be able to ask slightly more direct questions. So it will be interesting to see the kind of things that Sarri says around the market in the next couple of weeks. Like you mentioned, obviously his relationship with Tari is better, or at least he's getting what he needs. But I do wonder if he's going to have the balls to kind of come out publicly and say, I still need another striker, given how much the club's already done for him.
Did you read the interview on Corriere dello Sport where he said that his relationship with Tare is not bad? Obviously, they don't see it the same way on everything, but it's not true that he had problem with Iglitare. And I think that this summer transfer proves it, right? Tare, and it was funny, Alistair, and I mentioned it in my YouTube channel. Tare, in the press conference that presented 4 of 6 Lazio new signing, said it. This was a player manager asked. This was a player manager asked. I mean, he wanted to point it out that, hey, I bought this player because the manager asked him.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of how it should work. This shouldn't be something that's kind of special to us. It's kind of how the whole point of this structure existing is that's how it happens. So, but yeah, it's still good. It was. I mean, the interview is quite enlightening. Actually, I think is good to see. Well, it's good to see Lazio actually allowing that to happen for a start. A big sit down with the manager, and it was quite enlightening in many ways. I think that going into the season, we have reasons to be confident. I think we should probably get onto the kind of season preview part of this more now, which is now that we're happy with this transfer market and we're happy with the squad, what do we expect? I mean, the first question I want to ask you is, how do you see Serie A this season? Because it's changed quite a bit probably since the end of the last in terms of the teams around us and how strong everyone is.
Well, I'm going to see it with my glasses. Otherwise, I won't see it very well. You love my joke, right? That jokes. My kids adore me for that. Anyway, I think it's going to be an exciting competition. I think, again, we're going to see 3 teams, I think this time, fighting for the Scudetto. And I mean, Juventus, Inter, and Milan. I see them slightly above the others. Now, as we mentioned, and I think we both agree that Lazio did a great summer transfer market. One thing we forgot to mention, this was a very complicated summer transfer market for Lazio because we were losing Leiva, we were losing 2 goalkeepers, we were losing Acerbi, we didn't talk about Acerbi. So we had a lot of things to be done, and I was impressed because we did it. We replaced the goalkeeper, we replaced Leiva, we replaced Acerbi, and so on. So I think Lazio did a great transfer market, but we have to admit that Roma probably did a better transfer market. Probably Roma at the moment is the team that did the best transfer market so far. So obviously when you put the ranking, you don't have to think only about your team. You have to think about your competitors. I'm surprised Atalanta pretty much didn't do nothing. I'm surprised that Napoli let a lot of players go because Koulibaly is gone. Mertens is gone. Insigne is gone. I don't think they replaced them. So obviously our target is the 4th place. I see Roma slightly above all the others. I think Napoli will do something from here till the end of the transfer market window. So I see Roma a little bit above us. Napoli, I think they will do something. So I see Napoli slightly above us as well. And then there's Lazio. I don't think Fiorentina and Atalanta are a better team than we are. So yeah, it's gonna be tough to reach the fourth place, but I think we improve. And going forward, I think Lazio is the best team. It's a team position better than the other because signing Matic, signing Wijnaldum, signing Dybala is good for this season. But what about next season or in 2 years' time, right? So fifth, sixth place this season.
Oh, bold. Um, yes, I think you're right. What you say about Roma for sure. I think the other thing about Roma this season is that, and I don't know how many people who listen to a Lazio podcast will have been paying attention to this, but Roma had a preseason friendly last night against Shakhtar Donetsk, and they had about 65,000 people in there. It's quite hard to, express quite how much of an uplift of enthusiasm there has been at that club in the last year since Mourinho arrived. And it's completely different than it used to be. And I think that's going to play a huge part. They've broken their season ticket sales record. They're going to be packing out the Olimpico for most of their home games. And there are very few teams in Italy who will be able to really replicate that, I think, week on week, the atmosphere that seems to have been generated by Mourinho and obviously the great Conference League triumph last year. So, yeah, I think, Wijnaldum, Matic, Dybala, it's a good transfer market, whether we like it or not. It's pretty strong. I still think they've got some weaknesses defensively. But yeah, definitely they're stronger than they were last season. Napoli are the great unknown for me, because currently, there's talk yesterday again about Fabian Ruiz now being sold. He's out of
Yeah,
contract next summer, so they want to get cash while they can. But if they sell him as well, I mean, it means they've sold the whole kind of spine of their team basically without really replacing it.
no,
And I don't really believe that Spalletti is the guy who's going to be able to single handedly turn that around. Then again, they were brilliant for half a year last season. We're in the Scudetto race, so it would be a big fall for them to suddenly not be even
yeah.
in the top four discussion. So they still have a very good squad. I'm finding it so hard to call this year. But yeah, I think what you say probably is about right, to be honest, because
I
Lazio
know.
have improved. There's no doubt about the fact that the squad's better than it was last year, and they're probably more settled. There's less adapting and changing to do, although there obviously still is an element of that with the new players coming in. But I think it's still going to be really tough to break that top four.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with Roma, then we have to be honest. I mean, it's the pitch that speaks, right? On paper, Roma has a very good team. Then we have to see them playing. Same thing for Lazio, because to be honest, the friendly matches weren't great, and we have to see the Luis Alberto situation. But yeah, I think we did a good job, especially signing youngster. But seeing the other teams, Milan, Inter, and Juve are above us, even though we have to see the injury situation of Juventus. Um, and then there is Roma probably. So no, you're not convinced about that.
I'm not convinced about the idea that Juve are going to be part of a breakaway
Mm,
set of teams this year. Um, and I've had to kind of argue this case a few times this summer because I think people are getting quite excited about the market they've had. And it has been good. I mean, look, they've invested in the whole core of their team has changed Bremer and Di Maria and Pogba. But my doubts are entirely based around Allegri. I think his time has come and gone. I really don't
yeah.
value Allegri as a coach capable of winning Serie A as it currently stands. To be honest, I think football's changed a
I
lot
think
in his 2 years he took out of the
yeah.
game, and he was actually a detriment to them at times last season. So unless he comes into the new season has changed his ways a lot, I'm not so sure. I
I
think
think
they'll
the
get top
midfield
four.
is
But
quite.
I mean, I'm not sure they'll be in the Scudetto race, like you're saying.
I think the midfield is weak, still weak, and if will be out for a lot, they're gonna. But like, I mean, they have option, and I think they're going to sign some player from here till the end of the summer. So that's going to be, while I think our transfer market is done, if we don't sell Luis Alberto or Sherby, it's going to be done. Then I think the other team will do something, especially Napoli and maybe Juventus. Before we wrap it up, Alistair, what do you think about the Acerbi situation? Because he's out, he's been linked to a lot of clubs. Do you think Lazio is going to find a solution? And I mean selling him.
I would imagine so, yeah, because I do think that he is pretty good value for money with what Lazio, supposedly wanting 4 or 5 million for him. Given his experience, he's a starting centre back for a top 5 team last season. The situation hasn't changed. That is the reality of the player he is, and unfortunately, this is the way it looks like it's going to end. But I think for other Serie A teams, it's probably a little bit to do with him as well, though, and what he's willing to accept or not. Because I think I imagine, would prefer the idea of Inter or Juve suddenly really upping their interest in him and moving up to one of those very top Champions League sides. But in reality, he might be left with the opportunity of Monza or nothing kind of thing. And it's probably, I wouldn't mind reintegrating him into the squad, but they've definitely been preparing for this season without that.
No.
So it's going to be hard for him to get back into the Lazio team at this stage.
Don't see it happening. Monza or Nothing is a new series of Amazon Prime.
God, I hope not. I don't want to see behind the scenes things with Berlusconi. Is not what I want to be watching in my spare time.
It could be dangerous. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for listening. Remember, if you want to subscribe to our podcast, we are everywhere: Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. We are on YouTube, Lazio Lounge. If you want to support our channel, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month, and we're going to be back after Lazio Bologna, the first match of the season, Alistair.
Can't wait.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Well, I'll be there, so that can probably have an influence on your judgment.
I unfortunately will. Thank you again, Alistair, for joining us, and we're going to be back next Monday. First post-match review, Lazio Bologna. Goodbye, guys. Enjoy these last days of holidays. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.